and went through November, and we still ended up with a surplus of material. So I've pulled a session from that and turned it into a very special symposium where myself and co-host Rhiannon Clark discussed The Addiction by Abel Ferrara. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it, man.
Dark desires, breathing in fire, a blaze, fueling my last days.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I chose the Addiction from 1995, another Abel Ferrara film with Christopher Walken.
Yes, she covered King of New
Yes.
York. That's a wonderful episode. You
Mhm.
should check it out.
And it's New York again. We're in New York in this movie, The Addiction, and I love the energy, the vibe of New York. And anytime New York is in a movie, it has me already. Like the city, New York itself is an actor. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It is like a character in so many movies. Let me give you a quick visual aid. So this is it's probably going to roll backwards because of my horizontal flip. This is the Arrow Blu-ray edition of The Addiction I got, and this is like super deluxe and all that stuff with a new painting of the three main characters. So if you like the review,
if you Lily Taylor, that's Lily Taylor. The shadows on Lily Taylor's face.
Yes, basically. And Walken and Sciorra.
And then we have Christopher Walken, and yes, how do we say her name again? The beautiful lady.
I think it's Annabella Sciorra. She's Italian.
Annabella Sciorra.
Of Italian.
Yes, she is Italian. Yes, indeed.
All right.
Abel Ferrara directed the movie, and it's presented by Russell Simmons and written by Nicholas St. John. He wrote the movie, and it's a fantastic movie. It's kind of like an allegory or a metaphor for drug addiction. That's kind of, I think that's what the movie was going for. But there's very many different layers to the movie, because basically we are zoomed in on Lily Taylor's character, who's called Kathleen, and then we have Edie Falco's character, Edie Falco, who is in The Wire and in a lot of movies, Sopranos.
Yeah, Edie Falco and
she was a Sopranos.
Yeah, Edie and Annabella Sciorra were both in the Sopranos, but this was like several years earlier.
And also Michael Leone. I can't say his name properly. Michael Imperileone. Yeah, beautiful. He's also in it as well.
Well, my favorite guy from the New York '90s movies who never got a big role is in the movie. Very key role as the professor, Paul Calderon. I love Paul Calderon.
Indeed.
And this is one of my favorite performances of his because it's totally different than all his other ones. But I'll let you discuss.
I don't know too much about other roles that he's done, but I will look into more movies that
he was in King of New York. It was a small.
Oh yeah.
He was one of the gang. He didn't have much dialogue at all, but he's very like I said, a lot of those movies, Tarantino and anybody who was using a ton of New York actors in that time period, Calderon was going to pop up.
And I love it. It's a really community feel. I think that's the thing. Everybody who's in this movie, you can tell that everybody loves making this movie. There's this feeling that everybody, they're really in it. Like there was some serious acting going on in this film. But yeah, so we're starting off with it's kind of a very philosophical movie, and Kathleen, the character, Lily's character, Kathleen, and Jean, Edie Falco's character, they're studying for a philosophical doctorate. They're studying to be for their masters or whatever, so in college. And you're being faced with all these sort of like deeply dark sort of visions of humanity and the darkness of humanity, and the question in this movie about evil and about, is evil like human nature, and like, is it in us to be evil? Are we meant to like feed that wolf, as it were? Like, are like, is it in us? Do we suppress it, repress it, or do we feed it? Or, kind of sort of just a very philosophical movie, basically.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's shot in black and white, and it's really beautifully shot in black and white.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of Nosferatu, sort of like it harkens back to that, like the original vampire
Mm.
movie, Nosferatu, one of the originals. And yeah, so we start off seeing the American army massacring in Vietnam, and it's kind of yeah, that's just all the dead bodies and stuff, and like people scapegoating other people for horrific crimes and things, or like, is it just humanity just wanting to like not look at itself or whatever?
These are kind of things that uh, Kathleen is like ruminating over these issues and
Yeah, she's ruminating.
yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry.
No, absolutely, in a sort of kind of philosophical way, like, because she does a sort of voiceover throughout the whole movie of her inner monologue, of her sort of poetic, um, philosophical thoughts. And I really, she's got it, that actress Lily Taylor. She's a very sort of poetic, sort of um, introverted kind of
Mm,
beauty to
yeah.
her. She's very artistic, a very artistic woman, like energetically on screen, I think.
Yeah, I love
Would
her.
you agree?
Oh yeah. She kind of has a bohemian vibe, but she's very natural beauty. A lot of people don't like
Hmm.
her look or her acting, but that's their loss.
Yeah, they're not getting it. Yeah.
Right. Because she's
Yeah. I
idiosyncratic.
remember she is idiosyncratic, and I remember seeing her in X-Files, actually
Oh
playing
yeah.
the blind lady who sees visions of people being killed.
Yeah.
I remember her from that episode.
She
Very arresting
in the
performances.
in that period, I think the only two movies that she was the lead, or she might have been a lead in a couple other indie ones, but it was this one, The Addiction, and I Shot Andy Warhol.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
she
I
was
still have to see that movie.
just funny in that one. Good Lord.
Yeah.
And playing a real life person who
Amazing.
was kind of deranged, but also kind of funny and likable. So, I mean, she was kind of built for that kind of role, really.
Can't wait to see it. Absolutely. Yeah. I read The Philosophy of Andy Warhol. I got stuck into that book once.
Oh, wow.
So,
Very cool.
yeah, really into him. Uh, Joe Delia put the soundtrack together for this movie, and he uses Cypress Hill when the when Kathleen Lily is walking home from pretty much walking home from college. The song, I want to get high, I want to get high. So it's just kind of like streets of New York. You're just here and you're kind of feeling the vibe, and you're like, well, look, the music is so good. Like the energy, you can kind of feel the vibe. It's like, I can understand how I could get in on this being wanting to be high vibe. By
It,
listening to that music and just being in the energy of the city, and kind of you could
Russell
kind of get it.
Simmons, Russell Simmons, who, as you said, presented it. I guess I think he helped produce it. Basically, I think he was one of the main guys of Def Jam Records. He was in the hip hop scene. He was big in the hip hop scene, one of the biggest. And Ferrara's got in hip hop. He was a little old to be an older white guy in that period getting in hip hop, but he got obsessed with it and he used it in a lot of his movies. Schoolie D scored a couple of his movies, and they're buddies. So he's into that stuff big time.
So basically, Kathleen, Lily Taylor's character, is walking through New York and meets our beautiful Annabella Scort. I how do we say her name again?
Skiora.
Annabella Sciorra. Thank you, Annabella Sciorra.
Mm.
I'm like trip over my words.
No worries.
Yeah. So yeah. So she meets um Kathleen meets Annabella Sciorra, and she's dressed stunningly because vampires are dressed stunningly because they are alluring and they gotta be seductive.
Right.
So she grabs Kathleen and pulls her down a stairwell, and pretty much was saying, kind of says, um, "Look at me and tell me to go away. Don't ask me, tell me." But because
Right.
they kind of want to play off the fact that their victim is actually submissive, and they're kind of getting a hit out of that as well. And like
It's
because
kind of like the
anybody
rule
who,
of. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mhm. No, you go ahead. You were going to say something valuable there. I knew
Well, it's
you were
kind
going to
of
say
the
something
rule
good.
of, they can't come into a house unless you invite them. So it's the same kind of thing
Oh,
here. That's a more the one that you're talking about that they use. That's a more obscure thing that isn't used a lot. But I thought it was similar, and I liked the way they did it.
yeah, it's a really, I didn't actually get that particular point, but actually that makes a lot of sense.
The woman's
And
saying you
thank you.
can save yourself if you do the right thing. She's giving her one chance. You can save yourself
Yeah,
if you do
yeah,
this. You can ward me off. But right, you talk about
yeah.
submissive, and she wasn't willfully submissive, but she submitted because she didn't know how to do what the lady told her to do.
She was scared.
Of course.
And it is, she was scared, but also it kind of like gives you that sort of vibe that like you have to when you especially if you live out in like in a city or whatever that you actually have to have a backbone and you have to be able to say like get lost
Yeah,
like if
sure.
some weirdo comes up to you you have to be able to say get lost like
Mm.
because if you can actually say that then you've literally walked home successfully
Yeah,
late at
yeah,
night as a woman
that's
or
true.
whatever or a man. Yeah, you kind of have to like learn how to be street smart. Like I mean, I grew up in a city in Dublin City, so and there's a lot of addicts on the street and stuff, and you
Mm.
know. But the wild thing is that I got to know a load of them, so they leave me alone as well.
Yeah, if you're cool with people, a
um,
lot of times because they're going to hate you if they think you're part of what's bringing them down. If they realize you're a victim of the system too, and you're cool, you're not going to harm them. A lot of times they're just going to chill. Not always, but
yeah. Well, the thing is for me is that I tend to look well, so people don't look like I'm any victim of anything, and you know, so.
right.
But I do tell them that I'm autistic. I say, look, man, I'm autistic. Give me a break.
Yeah,
And they're like, oh, sorry.
yeah.
Literally. Then they just say, I'm sorry about that. And then they leave me alone. That's it.
Oh, I can tell you
Yeah,
some
just be
stories.
honest, be true.
Yep, sure you can
Mm-hmm.
do the same. So what about this one?
Mm-hmm.
She's vampirized, but doesn't
Oh,
real.
yeah. So she's vampirized anyway. And then she gets home and she's like looking at her neck and she's like, like she's really like looking like a
It's really gross.
really upset. She's freaked out and she like rips the bandage open and you can see it, the neck, and just like she's not there yet. I think she's just still in shock. She's not really there. I'm a vampire. She doesn't really understand what's after happening to her. And uh, yeah, uh, I think it cuts to uh, the school or whatever, and Paul Calderon, and he's the professor, and he's talking about the unsaved doesn't believe that sin exists. So, um, basically, Kathleen Lilly's character is in college or whatever, but I don't know if she's in his class or whatever. I think
Yeah,
maybe
she
she's in
is.
a different class to him.
Yeah, she has a
Um,
question.
but yeah, and he just says the unsaved doesn't believe that sin exists. Guilt is the sign that God is working out your destiny, basically. So if you have some sort of a conscience or if you feel guilty in any way, that means that you're able to kind of like transcend your ability to be able to sin or whatever. So that's that's the philosophy that Paul Calderon's character is portraying. And I love this movie in that there's different bits of like John Paul Sartre, and there's
Mhm.
like different like philosophical thought leaders or whatever being mentioned all
Mhm.
throughout the movie.
And some theology. Well, he brought a lot of
Yeah.
theology because Ferrara loves his Catholic symbols in all his movies.
Well, it's like, the good versus evil, like light versus dark or whatever, this sort of battle for the consciousness of a human being with all of that is like really fascinating. It is fascinating. I think we're
Oh
all
yeah.
working through it in our own way every day, you know, depending
Mhm.
on what's happening, you know. Um, yeah, so the Kathleen goes back to hospital and they say that they're saying that she just has anemia and because the wounds have healed on her neck. And the thing is that the wounds have healed on her neck because she's a vampire and she knows how to self heal.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
Just like when you're a
so
werewolf in a
that's
movie
that.
and you get hurt. Yeah.
You can you can push the bullets out of you. You can like literally
Right.
the wounds heal over.
Hmm.
Yeah. um. So yeah, and then we see the next day in college, Kathleen is kind of sickly watching Edie's character Jean eating her burger, and she's still out of it a little bit. Um, but then we see her looking in again to, it's like again thinking about like the Holocaust and thinking about Hitler and thinking about are we history is doomed to repeat itself.
Right.
Um, and everything, and then it says everything we are is internally within us, and kind of that idea, are are we innately evil? And when you look at things like the Holocaust, when you see things like that, you think, you know um is that who we are or whatever? And but humanity has to really dig deep to kind of work to be better than they were or whatever, like, and hopefully history doesn't repeat itself. But then again, I do believe that we all do have a shadow. It's just learning how to channel it properly. you
Right.
know I think even people who call themselves all love and light and stuff, some of those people are the most shadowy people that I've ever met, are some of those like complete love and light freaks. Because like I literally see that they want to be seen as some sort of a guru, or they want to be
My
seen as a
ex-fiance
sort of
was
like a
exactly what you're
savior.
describing. Yes. And she's
Yeah,
watching too
like a
bad.
savior complex.
It is. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I know,
yeah,
but
yeah. When you're close to somebody like that, you feel like you always know that they feel they're morally superior to you. And it's like, it's like let's deal with reality together. Don't put yourself on this pedestal and just because you're smart or you're spiritual. I mean, you
Mhm.
might not have all the answers.
Yeah, yeah. And like the thing is, like, yeah, I mean, look, we all have a mission or whatever in our life, but at the same time, you can't take it to the point where you're acting like you're better than everybody else. Like, you know what I mean? And you're acting out like if you're all love and light and you haven't seen that part of your shadow, you can actually act in horrific ways without realizing you've after being horrific, because you don't see that you don't see yourself that way, so you're
Right.
actually in more danger of harming people. Honestly, I think I don't trust somebody who's all love and light, to be
I feel like
fair.
they're a little out of touch with just reality. I mean, I think they're afraid of being on an earthy level because they feel like that's evil or that's going to taint them. But actually, it's all it's going to do if they're smart. It's going to help them be stronger and just face reality and deal with life successfully as possible. But they feel like they're kind of above all that. So they
Mhm.
have problems
Look,
socializing.
yeah, I get that. Look, I feel like, okay, maybe I'll end up being like that when I'm like 100 or something, and I can have 11 years of saintliness. But I
Yeah.
don't
By that
think
time you've earned it.
you know, yeah, it's fine. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm gonna be here on planet Earth for the rest of a year, so you're stuck with me.
That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah. But so yeah, so then yes, like looking at like fucking, excuse my French, I'm cursing because it is horrific when you see like the Holocaust. It's arresting, it's disturbing, it's heartbreaking or whatever. So like the director really knows what they're doing, kind of bringing all of this philosophical conversation mixed with the imagery or whatever. They really know what they're doing. It's a very self-reflective movie, I think. Um, so basically, Lily's character, she's a vampire, but she wants to feed, but she's still human in her mind. So she doesn't really kind of know how she's going to feed on people, like morally she's having sort of pangs about like, how am I going to kill, am I going to kill someone, how am I going to feed, how am I going to
Well,
feed,
yeah, I mean,
you know?
everybody's
And
told
so
vampires
she
are
has this,
fake. So
yeah.
how do you know how to do things?
Hmm.
She has to get us some advice.
Yeah, so in her mind what yeah, so what in her mind, what she does is she takes a syringe and she finds a homeless guy who's passed out drunk or whatever, and like takes his blood and like a syringe amount of blood, and takes it home and like shoots up this homeless guy's blood. So that's the first kind of imagery of kind of sort of heroin addiction kind of energy.
This was also the era of
I
AIDS.
don't
A
know.
lot of people got AIDS from doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Passing around needles and things like that. And yeah, especially in the 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even into the 90s.
But
But yeah.
yeah, that's true.
So that's how she first
But,
receives blood.
yeah,
Okay.
that's how she first receives it, by injecting, taking it from the homeless man and injecting it into her arm. She then, after that, she really wakes up to the feeling of being a vampire. She embraces it, and you can see her sort of reveling in it, sort of dancing seductively to herself,
Mhm.
reveling and staring at her beautiful paintings in her apartment, like kind of, yeah, feeling herself, feeling the energy of vampire strength. She's like, I'm strong. You could see it in her that she's like, she would, before she was very submissive, but now that she's taken this blood and she's accepted that she's a vampire, now she's like, you can see why people think becoming a vampire is a very sort of attractive idea after probably spending most of your life in disempowerment, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you feel like you've got this superhuman strength and you're able to, like, do anything, you're immortal and like literally like, so I get it. So so then they Kathleen and Paul Calderon's character, the professor, they go on a date, and there's a little sort of a romance between them, and they're having dinner to the cello. Like it's all very sophisticated. Like they're philosophizing, and there's a man playing the cello, and they're eating good food, drinking wine. It's like it's sort of, it's a seductive, it's a date scenario.
Right.
And then in the evening, you get it, it's like that is the world of the vampire, even like the sort of like indulgence and
He's trying to
wine and
seduce
good
her, whereas
food and
she's
good
also
music.
right doing what you're describing. They're seducing each other, but for different motives completely. And I think there's also
That's it.
a message that the professor seems cool and he plays it cool, but I wouldn't call him a sexual predator. He just basically wants to get laid and thinks she's attractive. He doesn't really care about her opinions, unfortunately. So there goes that. So she knows he doesn't appreciate him. So why would she fuck this guy? Now that she's a vampire, she can get something else out of him.
Hmm.
So
Mm. Yeah, well, that's the thing. When as soon as you become an addict, or if you're a vampire or whatever, your your morals kind of change. You don't, you're more to feed yourself. It's more to feed the addiction. That's more of your motive
yeah,
than
you become
anything
like a
else.
split
Not
personality. and because
Hmm.
like Bill Mulligan, who was one of our star panelists in the show, we talked about this last year when we covered vampires, and he said, "Well, I just personally think all vampires are evil, and they need to be eliminated." So he said there are exceptions like Hannibal King and Blade, not the movie version, the comic book version. Um, but yeah, there are exceptions, and there are people that fight it. Like the character Morbius is a good example. Even though he's not a supernatural vampire, he's a good guy, but when he has the thirst, he screws up a lot and hurts people. And I would
And
lump.
then we have Angel. We have Angel from Buffy. Buffy, woo.
Oh,
Yeah,
David Boreanaz, is he in this? Did I forget him?
yeah. No, he's not. But
Oh,
yeah,
oh, oh, oh! You're talking
David
about
Boreanaz.
characters like,
But
yes,
like as a
Angel.
good vampire,
That's a great example.
Angel, the good vampire.
And Nick
Yeah,
Knight, even though that
the
wasn't a
reluctant
good show.
vampire.
Yeah, the reluctant vampire, which that phrase was coined by EC Comics. They had a story called The Reluctant Vampire in the 50s, and he was a sweet, nerdy guy. He didn't really want to be a vampire, but he ended up getting staked.
Oh no. But yeah, okay. After that, what happens when, speaking of steaks, they're probably having steaks.
Yeah.
They're probably eating steaks and drinking wine. But they go home back to Lily's house or Kathleen's house, her apartment, and she drains him, but she offers him heroin. She offers him heroin, I think, and and it's very dark and edgy or whatever. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's an
Like, I mean,
uneasy scene
now,
because he
yeah.
I felt I liked his character even though they argued a lot because I like Val Calderon, I guess, and he was playing a different kind of character. He wasn't playing a street level character really. He's playing a more like a black yuppie kind of character, and he was good. And but then when they finally get to the apartment, it's like I felt as though he was trying to take advantage of her. I mean, and if she had reciprocated that's one thing, but now that she's a vampire, it doesn't really matter. She's gonna kill him anyway, even if she did like him. But I don't think she did want to have sex with him ever. That's just my opinion, and I think it made his character kind of creepy at the end. Um, I know it's a kind of a
Yeah. Well,
common
I
read on
think
things.
that is a I think it could be also a very like a deliberate thing because some men are like that and some men do that, you know what I
I mean,
mean?
he
They
might have had
do.
good motives. He might have genuinely liked her and wanted to please her in bed, but he was a little awkward. As the closer they got to it, he was kind of awkward and uncomfortable, and I think he sensed there was something fucked up in that apartment or whatever, because he started getting kind of tense for good reason.
Hmm.
Just little thing.
Indeed. He yeah, no, he got tense because she was offering him heroin and she basically the cuts to him passed out and he's lying there and there's blood on his arm or whatever and there's a little marker saying in and out or whatever. It's really sort of
Let me ask
really
you a question.
artfully done. And then hmm
I was just going to say
yeah.
to clarify for people watching, and also just because for some reason I'm blanking mentally right now. Um, is she doing this way so that she won't create more vampires? She's not actually drinking the blood from them and vampirizing them. She's just taking it in like a medical way at first. Do you think that? I don't know.
I think at first she doesn't really know how it's done, and I think she's really sort of struggling with the idea of harming people.
Yeah,
But like what you see later with the character of Paul Calderon's character is that I think she does turn him. You
oh
know,
yeah, she ends
she
up turning a
turns
lot of
him
people.
particularly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. It's just
Yeah,
at first it seems like
she
she's going
does.
out of her way not to do
At
it the
first,
traditional way. Yeah.
she is going out of her way at first to not, because it's even philosophically, she's like an overthinker, even as a
Oh,
vampire.
yeah. Definitely an
She's like,
overthink.
I'm overthinking this. I'm a vampire and I'm philosophically overthinking being a vampire now. So I'm going to like draw blood from someone's arm or whatever to like get my food or whatever. So she
Right.
hasn't embraced her nature yet.
Right.
whatever. But she takes money from his wallet when he's passed out. She takes money, and she's like, I got mine. She can see she's
All
starting to get
vampires.
into the
This is why vampires are rich.
energy.
Some movies and books have actually come out and said it. When most of the
Mhm.
people they vampirize, they take all their money and then they just save it up and they end up having a lot of money. Why not?
Yep, I can imagine that being true. But yeah, her magnetism increases, and when she's walking through New York, like she gets approached by a group of men or whatever, and you can just tell that like her sexual magnetism is increasing the more blood is consuming. Um,
Very
yes, and when she's in college, she meets up with an anthropologist student, and Kathleen is talking to this lady, and it's like she says, man is the measure of all things. And so it seems to me that Kathleen uh, just really is sort of like um, a sapphic lover. Is that what you call it? Like somebody who's just like turned on by people who have really good, amazing thinkers. I think she
Oh,
wants
say
to
no.
turn.
Sapphic is a lesbian, but sapiosexual, you mean?
Oh
That's
yeah,
that's people who
that's
are talking.
that's it. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
No offense, lesbians.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, it's okay. But there was a kind of lesbianic vibe, let's be fair, because like she turns this anthropologist girl or whatever. And I think like with vampirism, there's something sexual about the biting of the neck.
Yeah.
So she doesn't mind. She's like she bites the men's necks, she bites the ladies' necks.
Yeah,
But it's
vampires are
very
kind of
sexual.
often pansexual. Whoever's got the blood,
Yeah,
whoever's got the blood, they're going to take it, and it's going to end up feeling like an erotic act on some level, even however it is.
exactly.
Good
That was just
observation.
the energy that I was getting. Yeah.
Very cool.
Um, yeah, so in the bathroom afterwards, she bites the anthropology student, and she's like, "How could you do that? How could you laugh? How can you bite me so glibly? Doesn't it affect you at all?" She says, and then Lily's character Kathleen says, "My indifference is not the concern here. It's your astonishment that needs studying." So she just gets real. She becomes real cool.
She's brilliant. Well, she was already
So
brilliant. But this is like wild.
yeah, she's like, that's really cool. Now you're starting to actually get into Kathleen as a character and like, wow, I'm enjoying this lady being a vampire. So yeah. Yeah, and she starts to get more vampiric, and at one point she's talking to Edie Falco's character, her friend who's also a professor, and she can't go into the sunlight, so she's becoming more and more vampiric.
Mm.
And I think then after a while she turns Edie Falco's character.
Hmm.
After she basically sort of pushes her will on her
Yeah.
again. Like
Yeah.
this is what
Yeah.
these
Gina's
vampires do. They
resisting
push
her.
their will.
I think she's afraid of
Jean
her.
is resisting.
Yeah.
She is afraid of her, and she's like, she took a tooth out or whatever at one point, and it was like she said she's rotting inside, and she was like saying, "Stare sin in the face." And she was like saying, "Stare sin in the face, and
Even
tell
while
me it doesn't
murdering people for
exist."
blood, she's philosophizing. She can't stop. She can't stop
Yeah, exactly.
philosophizing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then after that, she meets Christopher Walken's character, and he's walking down the road or whatever, talking to himself, rambling in his sort of night in the nighttime in a Christopher Walken kind of way, and it's like, and Christopher Walken recognizes her instantly and says, "Do you want
Oh
to go
yeah.
somewhere dark?"
Yeah.
So he kind of knows who she is and what she is. Um, and he kind of like talks to her like in such a way that he's kind of grabbing her with his dominance in a sense. He's like, your breath smells like shit. You know what I mean?
Well,
Sort
just
of
when she
like,
had learned to assert
yeah,
herself with
yeah,
humans, now she's got
yeah.
someone higher on her food chain, and she's
Hmm.
intimidated. And
Yeah,
so tell us about
because
his
he's a
character.
vampire.
Yes, he's
He is a vampire.
Pina, right?
Yeah, Pena.
Pena,
Pena is his
but
name.
he's from
Pena.
ancient Greece, I think, or Rome, or that he mentions it at some point in passing. Does that sound right?
I think I missed that particular
It's kind of
that
implied that
particular fact.
he's been around at least since ancient Rome.
Hmm.
So again, you got
Yeah,
into the
he's an
animal.
old soul.
Yeah, because we were talking the other night about vampires when I was talking about Vamp, and a couple of people pointed out, Dracula's only 500 years old in the 20th century, only 500 years old. But
Oh, he's
then
a young vampire.
yeah, but that was the standard. There are people who became vampires in the Middle Ages or recently, but Anne Rice started, what to my knowledge, was the first one who started depicting these really ancient vampires. And then some of the
Hmm.
comics
Anne
did it.
Rice.
Yeah. And I mean, she really changed a lot of ideas about vampires, mostly for the better, I thought. I mean, not that the old way was bad, but she added to the lore. And that was one thing that
Hmm.
I think Christopher Walken is that kind of vampire. He's walked the earth so long. And of course, he's very jaded. It comes through.
Hmm. He said he hasn't drank for 40 years, and he's like looking at Kathleen and kind of saying, "You could never have enough, can you?" Kind of like saying, you're a dirty addict," pretty much like kind of saying he is a vampire, but he's kind of controlled his vampirism, and that he's actually nearly lives a sort of like normal life, like where he blends in so people wouldn't actually know that he was a vampire. That's the kind of energy that Christopher Walken is bringing. Um,
Yeah,
he
I
and then
like
he
that.
starts philosophizing. He
Yeah.
starts philosophizing. He says the whole world is a graveyard, and we are the ones picking the bones. It's just a really beautiful line. I think it's very poetic. I love the idea of poetic vampires.
It's funny, like with the New York
Hmm.
thing and the black and white thing and Christopher Walken and the philosophy and these class issues. A lot of that sequence reminded me of William S. Burroughs writing, and there's a lot of elements in common thematically with that. And I wish Walken had done a
Hmm.
William Burroughs movie. I think he's probably too old now, uh, but it was that same idea because William Burroughs was a notorious heroin addict, and his first published novel was Junkie, and he eventually kicked it. And then a few years later, he got hooked again and kicked it for good finally. Uh, but he was one of the people who really started doing it. Maybe not the very first one, but in genre fiction, like using science fiction and horror tropes along with real gritty kind of street level stuff. He was using the addiction metaphor, because he knew what it felt like, and he was applying it,
Hmm.
and using it, making analogs and allegories out of it. Um, so that kind of reminded me of that in a way that kind of that he's mastered it.
Yeah, well, he actually mentions it. He mentions it, like he's like he says he describes it. He says, "Have you seen Naked Lunch?" Because it describes perfectly
Oh
what
yeah,
it's like to go without a fix.
I
And
forgot he said that.
so yeah, he mentions Naked Lunch, and so and basically Payne says, "What do you want from me?" Because she was saying, "What do you want from me?" And he was like, "What do you want from me?" Because
Mhm.
you're the one who pursued me. Payne is saying, "You pursued me, and now you're like trying to ask me what." Like, he kind of overpowers her, and
Mhm.
I think, and because he says, "You're a slave to who you are." Basically, I'm not, and he ends up like drinking her blood and leaving her wandering out into the abyss or whatever. And he's like, he says, "You can't kill what is already dead," which is
Right.
interesting. So, because
Yeah.
she tries to kill herself because she's in such total shock after meeting Pena and after like kind of um just basically being put through the ringer by this dude, like literally kind of confronting her for being acting like like an addict who doesn't know who she is, and it just kind of like elevates even her mind of what a vampire could be, which is actually a blessing. It's actually a gift. But
Yeah.
he obviously had to get a drink in before he pushed her out the door.
He kind of demolishes her ego. Yes, biting her. I'm not sure why he bit her. Did he have a
Mm.
weak moment? Was he trying to do a certain thing to her with that bite? I don't know. It was weird, but cool. I mean, well played.
Yeah, I think sometimes people's egos do need to be demolished, and sometimes it is a blessing.
Yeah, you're right.
Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Because I think it probably made her a better vampire, something to aspire to,
Right. Eh,
if that
nice
makes
way to put
sense.
it, I guess.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Make lemonade,
Right.
vampire lemonade.
Exactly.
Um, so this is a really wild scene. So Kathleen goes crawling home, and she's like literally doing amazing kind of like uh, what they physical acting, sort of physical theater. She's incredibly like she's rolling around the ground like an addict that's like completely kind of fiending or whatever, and she's covered in blood. And this guy comes over, like a good Samaritan, comes over and like picks her up by her legs and her arms or whatever, and
Yeah.
sure her neck is right there her head
He's
is
kind
right
of
there
like
at his
a
neck or whatever. So
grungy kind of guy, like somebody you'd be in a band or a roadie for a band or something. Like a
yeah, and that's
cool
probably
dude.
why I felt for him. I was like, he's a cool dude, and then he just like it's like, oh, it's lovely, and then you could almost say, oh, is the lesson never be good to somebody because they might do that? But like an addict, you need to kind of watch yourself around too. You do,
Right.
you
Right.
know, because they are manipulative,
Yeah.
So yeah,
And they will
and
lose
you
control.
can't have a bleeding heart, or you'll end up bleeding out. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well said. And one thing is that we talked about briefly, and of course you'll get into it, but is that you don't really see the what happens to any of these victims after, but you will
Hmm.
eventually.
Hmm. Um, so Kathleen becomes a powerful speaker the next day. So she's all sort of like businesswoman, and she's becomes incredibly confident, and like you can see that sometimes in certain social circles or whatever, that sometimes it seems as though the sort of social vampires are the ones who rise to the top in certain fields and that are incredibly confident. They have this sort of confidence that's seems nearly psychopathic, and
A
I
lot
think
of them
that
are
that's what
sociopaths.
was
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sociopathic or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was happening here. Kathleen comes in and she gives an amazing speech. She's gotten her doctorate for philosophy, and so they say they're basically Kathleen starts. I think they've arranged a party for her and all of the the philosophical majors, doctorate
Ahoy polloi,
majors.
the academic
Yes,
academics.
the academia. It's an academia
They're
party.
they're very
Ding
stuck
ding
up.
ding ding
Yeah.
ding ding ding. Yes.
Right.
Let me make a speech. But yeah. So
Pretentious.
yeah, so everybody's at this party, and on the drive to the party, we see Kathleen all done up again, all like seductive, really beautifully done up or whatever in the taxi on the way there. And then we have more philosophy sort of voiceover. We drink to escape the fact that we're alcoholics is one of the lines.
Right.
So it's like,
It's a
just
cycle.
like beating the addiction, like to yeah,
Right.
it's a cycle
Circle.
basically.
It's just
And then
circular.
outside of the party, it is a vicious circle. Yeah. Anyway, um, but yeah, Michael Laperioni, he is basically he's a priest, and he's handing out flyers for a holy night or whatever. And Kathleen, Lily's character, comes up to him and asks him, like, I think she wants to feast on him or whatever, but then he was just kind of his strong faith in God completely blocked out any. energy that that Kathleen was trying to force upon him. So
Mm,
basically, it was kind of like God. If you are literally surrounded by God's light or whatever, there is nothing that can harm you or say or that can penetrate that the shields of love
mm,
that the creator has around you. So that's the vibe that the priest was given off there. That basically, if you have a strong shield of love around you, you will not succumb to a vampire's um, charm. That's why Kathleen's character is like, I will not submit. I was like, that's a bit mad. She just goes into a closet or whatever at her own party and goes, I will not
yeah,
submit
that was
for
crazy.
ages. That was a bit mad.
It was
But like I didn't
unexpected.
think there
Yeah,
was any need for that. But
yeah,
actually when I
yeah,
think about it, it's probably submit to God's love or something, maybe. But it seems like a scene that should possibly have been deleted because it didn't seem to like flow.
yeah, because she's building towards the climax of the movie. So when she does that, she kind of takes a
Yeah.
step backward, like so late in the movie. That's a little
Hmm.
weird, but you know, whatever.
But it was I guess it was just the power of God's love that she was like resisting the energy, and that was the point that was being made there, I
Yeah, yeah,
think.
yeah. I get what yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, because she's defiant. Because really, I mean, it's become a cliche in the years since this movie, unfortunately. But this was the era we're talking about. The patriarchy was first becoming a big phenomenon, and that's really, to me, what she's a victim of. That's the structure that she lives under and she is a victim of. And when she becomes a vampire, she's empowered. I'm not saying that this is a feminist statement. I'm also not saying it's not a
mhm.
feminist statement. Just like Ms. 45,
Interesting.
a lot of people take that as a feminist movie because this woman who's raped twice has had enough and she starts killing every male. She even tries to kill the male dog who barks too loud. No new females. She thinks
Yeah.
they're sisters. So,
Uh, and then
and
there's
this
that movie Monster as well. Kind of reminds me of Monster.
Monster, yeah, that really happened, most of it. That's a good movie. But yeah, I mean, I feel like she's saying, these are my concerns and no one's listening, because it's all sexist, misogynist, rich white people, and occasionally a rich, arrogant black guy or Hispanic guy like called Paul Calderon. They let him into the circle, because he was pretentious enough. But yeah, but
Mhm.
what's getting ready to happen that you're going to talk about really makes this whole allegory blatantly obvious, and I really think it's one of the most brilliant ways it's ever been done.
Mhm. Well, there's a part where they take the Catherine Kathleen basically takes um this the dinner lady, one of the hostesses costumes. She brings them into the back room, and I don't know why she did that particularly. I
I
don't
think
know why
she
she did
needed,
that
I think she
particularly,
kind of
but she
needed a
ends up.
recharge because she was freaking out
Oh,
about
maybe
this
that's what it
earlier.
was.
Yeah, I think she wanted to
Oh.
go through with what she originally planned. The priest freaked her out, and so
Mhm.
she needed some blood
She needed a top up of energy. Oh, that
yes,
makes sense. Thank you.
like when I drink
So she
Ensure.
topped up on some energy and got a new outfit change.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's wearing the hostess's clothes, and then she comes in, and she's like, basic, basically, it's like, can I make a speech? Ding, 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 ding. Let me tell you what I found out philosophically, what I really think about humanity or whatever. And then she proceeds to feast upon the room of the guests, and then other members of other people that she has turned during the movie also feast upon the guests. So it's basically she's after arranging an amazing dinner party for vampires by
It's an
getting lots of
orgy.
uh, yeah, an orgy, and they're in a bloodlust. They're absolutely in a bloodlust, and it's really amazingly shot. It's stunningly shot.
Yeah, and I really think
Hmm.
it's Eat the Rich. I really think it's more couldn't be more
Yeah.
blatant, really, to me anyway. I mean,
Okay.
because once the vampire,
Hmm.
all the people she's vampirized were of all different races and classes, but now they're as one. feeding on these rich, pompous people, white people, men,
Mhm.
and a few women on bystanders. And he's just, it's like, okay, so this is like eat the rich. This is like, we're together in death now.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, it is quite
Class does not
literally. Yeah,
matter.
it is quite
Like
literally.
Calderon
Indeed.
is right next to the hip hop guy that she killed, and they're acting like they're buddies. Let's get to it, man. Um,
Mhm.
it levels everybody out. And I don't know if that was a deliberate. I,
Indeed.
I probably, but I mean, to be honest, some of this I'm saying now is only coming to me for the first time. But a lot of it, I have thought about that as a class warfare scene, um, on some level or another, and it made me feel good because she was kind of like saying, you guys have always kept me down, but now I've got my posse, and you think you're better than us, but you're not. We're gonna prey on you now. You've been preying on us our whole lives. You know, a
Hmm.
lot of strong
It's
messages.
interesting.
Tell me about the ending because
Yeah.
the ending confuses me. The last time I watched it, yeah, wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah. Well, she wants to kill herself. I think she goes back. She ends up going to hospital again. No way she goes to hospital again
Oh yeah, yeah.
for
She
some
wants to
reason.
die. She keeps asking them to do things like take the.
But I think she wants to die. I think she's just her. Maybe she's horrified at like to the depths of what she's just sunk to. That
Yeah, I
she's
think
like,
so.
I don't know how I'm going to continue being this character if I'm going to have to keep setting up these kinds of parties. She lies in her hospital bed. She asks to be forgiven by God. So she asks for the priest to forgive her, get some uh, some body of Christ administered,
Mm,
and she waits for the light to burn her up. So she
mm.
opens the Venetian blinds, and there's these sort of the lovely Venetian blind silhouette going down the screen, and then we have Annabella's Sororica. I keep saying her messing up
Skiora.
on her last name.
It's all right.
She, Skiora. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay. I don't think she's gonna be
yeah,
watching.
and it's okay, but like if she ever does, I'm sorry, girl.
I
I
I
didn't
was
grow
trying
up
to
with
get
my
her to
mother
watch
tongue.
our show, but it didn't work. But anyway, go ahead.
It's okay.
Story for
It's
another
okay.
time. We still love your
I
acting.
don't mind.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, she's amazing.
So she visits her, and
She's fire, as the kids say.
what do you think her? If yeah, she's fire. What do you think of her message to is to Kathleen?
Well, she stops her and she says, "We do evil because we are evil." And she basically she's like, "You are a vampire. Like, freaking, pretty much get over it. Like, just get used to it or whatever. You are a vampire."
She's jaded
But
too.
then, yeah, she's like, "I'm a vampire, and I turned you." And you're going to walk this with me. We're going to be vampires together. You're not going to get out of it this easily or whatever. But they stage a death, I think. They
Hmm.
stage a death for her. And and so
But most of it's off
so it,
screen.
it yeah, that's the weird part. But it just cuts to basically Kathleen putting a rose on her own grave. And then
And
the last bit of philosophy is we stand before the light and our true nature is revealed. Self revelation is annihilation of the self, killing of the self.
yeah,
So that's an interesting bit of philosophy at the end. But I do believe that like in in the adult term of life, I believe that adults have this parts of their life where they live as a certain character and then they have to die to themselves to step into the next era of their lives. So I think that there was a bit of that too, like a bit of sort of like enlightenment philosophy at the end there.
yeah. It's like rebirth.
Yeah.
Some philosophers have called it
Right.
ego death. When your ego
Yeah.
primacy ends, you have to have an ego death. That's one reason so many people take LSD in the '60s, because Timothy Leary believed that too. These are not Western or monotheistic ideas. These are all Eastern and Buddhistic and Hindu ideas um and other religions in the area. But the killing the ego to let go, let go of material things, etc. I mean, some Christians do preach that, but a lot don't, obviously. But yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, yeah, I'd heard some of these ideas and things I read, and it was cool seeing them kind of distilled into this film. Um, I was a little confused though by how she was actually going to do that. Like, in other words, if she faked her death, she's free of all of this obligation. I get that part, and she's powerful enough to live on her own for centuries. But the application of the kind of the annihilation of the ego kind of philosophy, I don't really see how it applies to her life because I kind of feel like where is she going mentally at this point? I mean, she went radically from, killing all these people to then trying to commit suicide to then getting out of everything. And when she puts a rose in her grave, yes, she's saying goodbye to the old person, but who's the new person? We just have to theorize. We're not given any
Well,
evidence.
that's the mystery, which is
Yeah,
what we love about life, I guess, is the
yeah,
mystery to who's next. But we do know that Pana is her mate, even though he did, like, he is her mate, and he could easily, give her a few ideas. But I think that she's very much on her own, um,
yeah. And I
in
don't
that.
know if she's gonna embrace everything that they told her, deny it, or try to
Hmm.
somehow. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't tell if she'd made peace with all the stuff, and you just kind of had to go by her expression when she goes to her grave. And I when I got the Blu-ray, I had not seen the movie in quite a while, and I did not remember that was the end. I thought the end was the feast, the orgy of blood, but I was wrong.
Hmm.
I forgot all about her being in the hospital and going to the graveyard. But the thing they did, where you don't see what happened, her faking her death, I found out in the last couple of years. So
Hmm.
that cinematic technique is called ellipsis, which an ellipsis is the dot dot
Hmm.
dot. So a director who was famous for this, first one who was really famous for it, was Yasuhiro Ozu, and we did a thing on Japanese cinema. I did one of his movies, An Autumn Afternoon. It's very famous art house movie from the olden days, and Ozu would do that. He'd like build up towards some event, and then he wouldn't film it. He'd go to the what happens after the event, and threw a lot of people off.
Hmm.
It threw me off the first time I noticed it in his movie, and then I realized, then I found out he does all of that on purpose. So yeah, I would say Ferrara, who I'm sure is an Ozu fan, most likely, almost all filmmakers are. I would say that he's probably like, well, let's just do an ellipsis. In other words, let the audience put it together. If they're not
Fill
stupid,
in the blank.
yeah. And
Hmm.
David Lynch does that, kind of, in other ways maybe, but
My final thoughts here is that it's very realistic. I think it's very gritty, and it didn't shy away from getting deep into it, deep images. Like, it's exactly what this show is about.
you're right.
I think
Wow,
Abel Ferrara put a lot of deep images together,
that's pretty
and it's a
incredible.
really good piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good piece for the study of addiction, and also a good vampire film. So yeah, in
Yeah,
one.
very unconventional, and I really liked that. So we're gonna wrap up, but please remember to like and subscribe,
Okay.
all those good things. We're trying to reach the magic number of 1,000 subscribers, and we're getting there, but we need your help so we can improve the show and keep going. Until next time, rock on.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.